Hi, welcome to Bald Spot Math. Today we're going to talk about variability in data. We've already talked about measures of center and other aspects of data. Today we're going to talk about how data varies. And data usually varies. It's very rare that you're going to have every single piece of data in your set be exactly the same. However, it does happen. So let's take a look. What are some examples? Height. In our class, not everybody's the same height. Ages. In our class, not everybody's the same ages, although it's pretty close. And of course, the money earned can be different depending on the population you're talking about, including maybe the allowances in our own class. So, data differs. It varies. That's what vary means, differs. Sometimes when we say varies, it means changes as well. All right. So the more your data is spread out, the data is said to be more variable, and that should make sense. If you have a much broader spread of data, let's say you have in a classroom people who have siblings from 1 to 15 and everything in between, that might be fairly spread out. Maybe in another classroom, everybody only has 1 or 2 siblings. That data is not terribly spread out. All right, so we're going to talk about data in 3 different ways. First is called high variability. Data is really spread out. And you can see in this example that it is pretty well spread from 1 to 10. There's a little bit of values. It is clustered more here in the middle, but there is data in every single one of these sections, although we don't know what they represent. Then we have low variability. And these things, again, are going to be relative. We always have to be careful, all right? It's going to be relative to the data that you have. And low variability is, they're pretty close together. We call that clustered data. And you can see there's not even any data on either end of our number line here. So in this dot plot, that's a low variability representation of our data set. And then we have no variability. It's all exactly the same. And again, this does happen, but it's not as common as having data that has some variability. Okay, moving on. So, the measure of variability describes the amount of variability in a data set. And there are a number of measures of variability. In 6th grade, we're talking about one, which is called the range. And you are probably familiar with the range. It's one of the measures, and the way we calculate the range is we take the maximum, the largest value of the data set, and we subtract the minimum, the smallest value of the data set, and that gives us our measure of variability. That gives us range. So let's take a look at some data. This is snow, inches of snow that fell, and our range is 38. And you're going to notice some numbers here in blue and red. That's just showing you what the maximum and minimum are. Okay? It's that basic. And last, we want to talk about today what are called stray data values, probably more commonly referred to as outliers. You have data that is way different. And again, this is relative, but way different from the rest of your data. Let's take a look at an example. In my study center, let's say I've got 8 people, including myself in that class, and we collect the ages. And we find that 4 of them are 11 years old, 3 of them are 12, and then there's me. Okay? Clearly, I am way out there. Very different than everybody else. And even though if we calculated the range, okay, let's do the range with me. And of course, that would be 48 minus 11, and that's 37. Okay? You would think that's high variability in my classroom, but I'm just one person. If we take myself out, take that outlier out that's kind of messing up, that's not a fair representation of the data, that could throw things off, really what we're talking about is a range of 1 year. So sometimes it is beneficial to take outliers out of your data, not just for measures of variability, but for measures of center. However, if you do that, you want to make sure you make a note of that. If you're giving a presentation or if you're handing in a report, you always want to talk about data that was excluded and why. Sometimes it's good to get rid of outliers. Sometimes you don't want to do that. And that's it for today.